Okay, it is 6:30, and as I said, we would start promptly at 6:30. We will. So again, my name is Andrew Bing, and I will be facilitating tonight's public workshop for the Coastal Corridor Study. And this public workshop will focus on the Bridgeville area. We certainly are glad all of you have taken the time to join us. We obviously wish we could be doing these workshops in person, but it's nice that we have this virtual option through Zoom to be able to hold this public workshop and seek your input and feedback and present some initial information about the Coastal Corridor Study. I know at some point we look forward to coming back out and being in person and maybe being able to both have an in-person portion as well as still be able to offer some kind of an online portion as well. So we hope that will happen soon. So with that, I'll go to our first slide. So as I said, what we're going to be doing tonight is first presenting some initial information about the Coastal Corridor Study. I'm going to invite Jeff Rigner to come on in a little bit, who will be leading us through that presentation. Again, we're at the very beginning of our study, so will be initial information, but we are looking forward to sharing that with you. But we're also looking to get your feedback and input on the Coastal Corridors area, and specifically Bridgeville, but certainly any areas within the Coastal Corridor area. We will be asking you 3 questions at different points during our presentation. We're going to be looking for you to provide us with any input that you choose to provide us. That'll just help us as we continue to study the area. The way you'll do that is by clicking on the Q&A button. If you hover over your screen with your mouse, you should be able to see that pop up. You click on that, and when we ask the question, we're going to ask you to put some feedback in there, and we'll explain that in more detail when we get there. Next slide, please. So we also will be having a formal Q&A session after our presentation. So we'll be doing that by bringing you on live, allowing you to ask your question, and if you have a follow-up or something. The way we'll do that is by having you click the raise the hand button, also on the menu bar when you hover over it with your mouse. So just click on that. I'll go in the order that we get people to raise their hands, and I'll bring you on. I'll unmute you, and then you'll have to unmute yourself. I don't believe at this point that we have anyone on by phone, so I won't go over the phone instructions, but if anyone does come on, I will explain how someone on the phone could also raise their hand and unmute themselves to ask a question. So our panelists for tonight, who will come on during the Q&A, if we have any questions that they can respond to. We have Mark Cote and Jen Sinelli Miller from DelDOT. Mark is the Director of Planning for DelDOT, and Jen Sinelli Miller is our project manager for this Coastal Corridor Study. We also have Jamie Whitehouse with Sussex County. We have Tramika Cherry-Wall with the Delaware Transit Corporation. I've already introduced myself, Andrew Bing. I will be facilitating the meeting tonight and handling the Q&A. And then we have Jeff Rigner, who's just popped up on the screen, who's going to be leading us through the presentation. But at this point, and I will just make note that we do have closed captioning going. We do apologize if every once in a while a word is misspelled, but we think this is a nice feature for anyone who would benefit from having the closed captioning. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Jeff Rigner, who's going to lead us through our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew, and welcome everybody. We really appreciate you spending time with us on this beautiful evening. I'll give, as he mentioned, a little bit of an introduction to the Coastal Corridor Study. So what exactly are the coastal corridors? It's not a term in common use, but for the purpose of this study, it's Route 16 to the north, Route 404 to the south, and the local roads between those 2 routes. So the study extends from the Maryland state line on the west to just west of Route 1 on the east. And these roads serve important local functions, as you all know. They're how people get to work, get to school, visit friends, how businesses get deliveries, and how customers reach businesses. So they're an important part of the local function, but they also have a through traffic function. They carry the majority of traffic between the Delaware beaches and the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And that's part of why we're looking at this study now. State of Maryland, as you know, has already widened 404 to within a few miles of the Delaware state line. They're also studying additional highway capacity crossing the Chesapeake Bay in the form of a parallel or new bridge. We've all seen on a regular basis how development activity continues to increase traffic in the study area. And the Delaware beaches aren't going anywhere. They're going to continue to attract visitors. And all of those factors contribute potentially to increasing traffic in the area. So with that understanding, we're undertaking this study to make sure that that future traffic growth, which is coming, works for the communities in the area rather than harming them. It's really important to maintain the high quality of life that you've come to know and love, to ensure the continued economic competitiveness of the area, and to focus on our key missions of transportation safety and mobility. And we're starting this process by listening to you. You and your neighbors know the study area better than anybody. And by understanding your perspectives up front, your concerns, your issues, DelDOT can work with you to develop solutions that work for the community. And we're doing that in two ways. One is through this series of workshops this week. We're having 5 of them. We also had a specific listening tour. We met with about 50 different stakeholders in the study area over this winter. We shared the same information that you've just seen over the last few slides. And we got a lot of input from them that we're going to share with you today. They included elected and appointed officials, a variety of residents, representatives of schools and businesses, emergency service providers, and the like. These were one-on-one or small group conversations, of course, virtually. Comments were not attributed to individuals, so that way people could speak freely about their thoughts, and we've aggregated those all together for the presentation here tonight. So what did we hear? Well, the only common theme that ran through probably everyone that we talked to was people love Sussex County. They don't want to lose the small town and rural way of life that you've come to enjoy. But beyond that, we heard a lot of specific suggestions and recommendations. We're going to spend some time summarizing those now so that you're able to hear them. We categorized them just to make it a little bit easier to follow. Safety, traffic are 2 big concerns, of course. Economic issues and opportunities, emergency services, technology and global positioning systems or navigation, and other category. So for each category tonight, we're going to list the comments that we received from the listening tour, and you'll have an opportunity to provide your comments alongside them. We also have some supporting technical information for some of the categories that we've just started to gather. Let's first talk about safety. So we heard specifically that traffic causes safety problems for operating farm equipment, especially on roads without shoulders. We heard safety concerns at a number of specific intersections and roads throughout the study area. Specific to the Bridgeville area, we heard about Route 13 and Redden Road, and more about that later in terms of an improvement that's going to be moving forward, as well as the length of Redden Road itself. We also heard that red light running is a safety issue. We do have some technical information on safety to share with you as well. We looked first at statewide crash rankings for intersections throughout Delaware. Periodically, the state is able to compile the list of the 50 intersections that have the greatest safety challenges in the state. 3 of those are in this study area. 2 that are in the top 5 are in Georgetown. One that's number 33 is in Ellendale. And you'll be happy to know that none of the intersections in the Bridgeville area reach that threshold. There certainly are crashes in the area, though, and we've been able to map those on this map. And in fact, over a 4-year period, which is what I'll be discussing safety about over the next few slides, between the beginning of 2017 and the end of 2020, there were over 3,200 crashes within the study area. So you can see some of the major hotspots that appear there. Georgetown appears pretty frequently. You can see the intersection just west of Ellendale at 113 and 16, at US 9 and Route 5, and as well as the intersection of 13 and Redden Road in Bridgeville. You can also see some slighter yellow concentrations at 13 and Newton Road, 13 and 404 to the south. These bar charts show the total number of crashes in the study area by year, 2017 through 2020. The very thin line at the top of each bar that's in orange shows the total number of fatal crashes. Thankfully, a very small percentage of the whole, but every one of these is very serious. So there were 3 in 2017, another 3 in 2018, went up to 5 in 2019, and then back to 3 in 2020. This map shows the locations of those fatalities. You can actually see a concentration around Bridgeville. So this is definitely an area that we'll be looking at in more detail. You can see the 3 crashes, 3 fatalities that occurred in 2020, circled in brown, all of them near Bridgeville, 1 to the west on 404 and 2 on Redden Road. So as I mentioned, we're going to be paying very close attention to this and trying to get to the root cause of why some of these safety concerns may exist. There were 14 crashes involving pedestrians and bicyclists during that time period. 1 of them did occur in Bridgeville. And thankfully, only 3 of those 14 crashes resulted in a fatality. You can see again a concentration in the Georgetown area in this category. We also looked at crash types. So we found that most crashes within the study area were either front to rear crashes, so rear end crashes, or one vehicle crashes, meaning a vehicle drove off the road into a fixed object or ran into an animal. And you can see there, 16% of crashes involved a fixed object, 10% involved a vehicle hitting a deer. So we took a little closer look at those categories. In terms of fixed object crashes, there was a real concentration of them on Route 30, so a good bit further east than where we're looking at tonight. So in the S-curve on Route 30, over a span of about 1.25 miles, there were 25 fixed object crashes that we need to understand. We also found that there were crashes were often contributed to by driver inattention, distraction, fatigue, careless or reckless driving, or driving under the influence. And you can see concentrations of those specifically at the intersection of 404 Newton Road, the bend on Newton Road, and then lesser concentrations along US 13. We also looked at deer crashes, again, about 10% of the total. Not surprisingly, most of those occurred at night without lights, both because visibility is more difficult then, because that's when deer are more active. In this case, Bridgeville does appear as a hotspot, and I'll zoom in there, and you can see quite a fair number along 13 and along Redden Road, as well as along 18 and 404 just east of Bridgeville. So that's a pretty significant concentration. So with that, we presented a good bit of information on safety, and we'd love to hear from you. We asked you the same questions we asked the folks who participated in the listening tour, and we'd love to have your answers. What safety concerns do you have in the study area? Please add new ideas, comment on some of the ideas that I presented on the previous slides. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and enter that into the Q&A box.
And I'll just jump in for a second, Jeff. You can definitely do that right now. It'd be great if you wanted to enter that into the Q&A box. Just again, hover over the screen. You should see the Q&A on the bottom. Just click on that and you can type in comments or feedback. We will save the questions for the end of our presentation when we do a formal Q&A. So we'll do questions there. Right now, we're really just looking for comments or any kind of feedback that you have about safety in the area. And as Jeff said, Any concerns you have or any new ideas or anything you may agree or disagree with what you heard Jeff say. We're going to continue on with the presentation, but as Jeff's going, if you think of something, just type it in. And we're going to also do this again in a few minutes when we get to our next topic.
Great. So our next topic is traffic. Everyone, of course, has lots of opinions about traffic, and we've got a couple slides worth that we heard during our listening tour. We heard that to avoid congestion, drivers are using secondary roads that aren't designed for that level of traffic. We also heard that service workers, many of whom work in the eastern part of Sussex County, live to the west because housing's more affordable. So they travel the east-west roads to their jobs, and that means that congestion is no longer just on the weekends like it used to be. It's all the time, and we have some data to show you that bears that out. Improving the east-west roads without fixing the existing bottleneck on Route 1 will only result in feeding more traffic into the existing backup. Couldn't agree more, and DelDOT and the county have a number of initiatives going on in the beach area to address just that. Continuing the traffic list, we had several specific locations that were mentioned as having traffic concerns. So one of them is the complex intersection of Cave Neck Road, Hudson Road, and Sweetbriar Road, southwest of Milton. And we heard about 3 on Route 16, but further east on 30, at 5, and at Route 1. We did get a comment that a suggestion for an east-west route that doesn't go through downtown Georgetown, and the need to address truck traffic in the 5 towns in the study area. So as I mentioned, we did look at technical issues in terms of traffic as well. This is a map of traffic volumes. This is from 2019, so this is before the pandemic and shows daily traffic volumes average across the whole year. And you can see, of course, the concentration on 13 and 113, both of which carry more than 20,000 vehicles a day. But closely behind is 18 and 404, which carries between 10 and 20,000 vehicles a day over most of its length. And also quite a bit of traffic on 18 and 404 west of Bridgeville and along much of 16 and Route 5. Those in blue carry between 5 and 10,000 vehicles a day. We also looked at level of service. Now, level of service is a measure of delay, in this case, specifically at signalized intersections. A is best and F is worst. Generally speaking, level of service D or better is considered acceptable in most cases in Delaware. We looked at all those intersections for which we had data, so traffic counts within the last 4 years. This past year has been an unusual one for all of us, and traffic is no different. So we were unable to get new traffic counts during 2020 because traffic certainly was not typical during 2020. In large parts of the year, it was significantly lower than it had been before, and it still hasn't fully rebounded. So all of the dots that you see there are intersections for which we did have recent counts. Our hope is to be able to get some more counts this year as traffic gets to normal or closer to it. And we found that there's only one intersection that's potentially a congestion concern among those that we had counts for, and that's in Georgetown, the intersection of 113, 18, and 404. You'll see notably we do not have recent counts on 404 in Bridgeville. So certainly that's going to be very important to us to be able to count the intersections of 13 and Newton Road and 13 and 404. I will note, though, that the intersection of 13 and Redden Road does show up as being level of service C or better. You can see that there. Next, we use a term called travel time reliability. It's not commonly known, but it actually is a pretty common sense way of being able to measure how bad traffic congestion is. I'd like you to picture leaving for work, if you do in fact still go to an office these days. But let's say you start work at 8 o'clock, and during uncongested times, it takes you 15 minutes to get there. If there really isn't congestion along your route to work, you could probably leave around 15 minutes before you need to get there. and reliably get there. So that would mean that the worst measured travel time and the uncongested travel time are about the same. Those would show up as green on this map. If instead there's sometimes congestion on your route to work, and instead of that 15 minutes, it takes, say, 30 minutes or more, then you need to leave work at 7:30 or even before to be able to get there, even though sometimes you'll get there in 15 minutes. That can be frustrating, which is why this is a really useful measure, because it affects all of us on a regular basis. If you have that congested issue or poor travel time reliability, that's when these lines start showing up as yellow, orange, or even red. And we looked at that for 3 different peak periods during 2019. So again, this is before the pandemic. This is the morning peak. And what you see showing up, the only one that shows up in red is eastbound Route 9 and 404 between Georgetown and the beach area. But you do see a number, and you also see a little bit of orange in Georgetown. You do see a number of yellow segments, which is travel time anywhere between 1.5 and 2 times the uncongested travel time. So you need to leave early to get to your destination on time. That's the rest of Route 9 east of Georgetown, and notably a number of segments around Bridgeville and just east of Greenwood. Now we'll look at the PM peak, and that's considerably worse. You especially see it again, that stretch of Route 9 east of Georgetown on 113 in the Georgetown area. You see a spot of it on southbound 13 in Bridgeville, right through the 404 intersection. And again, that yellow shows up in the Bridgeville area, a little bit west of Greenwood, a little bit east of Ellendale. And you may recall the comment that someone made that now PM traffic is just as bad as weekends. We also have a weekend example, and you can see PM is actually a little bit worse. So this is the weekend, and you see north-south in Georgetown is a real concern. You'll still see those yellows showing up on 9 east of Georgetown, and several segments of 404 and 13 in Bridgeville, and also southbound 113. So with that, we would love to hear your concerns about traffic. So in the Q&A box, please don't hesitate to type in your comments about traffic. What issues do you have? Where is congestion found? Where do you find it hard to turn in and out of driveways, for example? Have you seen some of the same issues that I mentioned earlier? Or are there some things that you've heard today that you think, oh, that really doesn't match my experience? Please let us know in the Q&A box.
And again, this one is focused on traffic, but still, if you think of anything related to safety, kind of the same questions we're asking, identically the same questions we're asking about traffic and about safety. So feel free to type that into the Q&A box. And again, we'll just accumulate that feedback and those comments. And at the end of our presentation, we will get into the formal Q&A. So again, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, you just need to click on that raise the hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll go in the order that we saw people sign up. Jeff, why don't you continue on?
You got it. We do have the other categories that we heard during the listening tour. One of them is economic issues and opportunities. We heard from some folks that some level of traffic is good for local businesses, especially ones that depend on drive-through traffic like retail establishments. We heard that it's important to preserve productive farmland in Sussex County. That's not just an economic issue, that's a quality of life issue. We heard earlier that folks didn't want all east-west routes to go through Georgetown, but we also heard someone say they don't want a bypass that draws all traffic away from downtown businesses. In some cases, folks disagree on issues, and we will listen to everyone who provides their thoughts. We also heard, of course, there's a high volume of trucks associated with the poultry industry, but trucks don't just use the main roads, which they typically use to get to the processing plants, but they also use small secondary roads to get to farms. And of course, the comment that there's much new development. As more keeps getting built, roads are not keeping up with the development. It's exactly why we're here today, is to better understand how that growth is going to occur and how best to address it. So you can see on this map, development activity that is gathered from state and county databases. This is all across the study area. You can see a greater concentration as you get further east, but it's certainly spread out all around the study area. Specific to the Bridgeville area, you see 3 projects on this map. You see the hamlet of Tillery up to the upper right to the northeast, Coastal Run Apartments, and then Bridgeville Town Center just southeast at the intersection of 13 and 404. We also heard a good bit about emergency services. Some folks noted that there's a need for a mass evacuation route that can quickly get large numbers of people away from the beach in case of emergencies. Folks noted difficulties for travel to emergency services. You know, nearby hospitals are in Milford and Lewis, also in Seaford as well. There are limited such services in this part of northwestern Sussex County. So congestion makes it hard to be able to get there. Likewise, emergency vehicles, ambulances and the like, need to deal with the same congestion that everyone else does on a regular basis, and they get caught up in that congestion. Technology and GPS navigation is a way that increasing numbers of people get around these days. So some suggestions were to better use technology to direct people to take certain routes based on where they're going, based on current conditions. Modifying GPS to direct trucks to truck routes, because we've all seen in some cases trucks following GPS getting stuck on small streets and roads that they're not designed for. And one person did note that traffic on 404 seemed worse before, and that maybe it's because GPS is causing people to disperse to some other smaller local roads. Finally, we had an other category. There's high demand for recreational bicycling, especially east of Route 113. They asked that we consider the need for green infrastructure, which is designing environmentally friendly stormwater accommodations for new road projects. And the suggestion was made that people be aware that the state is allocating more road improvement to Sussex County, road improvement funding to Sussex County than ever before. There are a lot of projects that are coming, and I'll actually show those on the next slide. So this shows the whole study area. There are a wide variety of projects that are shown here. Some of the larger capital projects that are in the Capital Transportation Program are shown with the purple diamonds. There are bridge rehab projects that are shown in green, traffic improvements that are shown in blue, trail projects in gold, and then pavement rehabilitation projects that are the red lines. And you'll see a good bit of that in the Bridgeville area. Large stretches of Route 13 and some other local roads are included there. There are 2 bridge projects, and in the center of that oval is a blue project, which is a turn lane improvement from for the southbound left turn lane from Route 13 onto Redden Road to address some of the crash issues that I mentioned earlier. And then finally, in this other category, we received a comment that it's important that the public be involved in conversations about how to plan for future traffic growth. Couldn't have said it better ourselves, and that's exactly why we're here, is to listen to you through these public workshops this week. And so with that, we'll go to our final question for you. We'd like you to enter into the Q&A box what other transportation issues that you experience in the coastal corridors area.
So again, at this point, pretty much anything that you want to put in terms of feedback or comments in the Q&A, but focused on safety, traffic, and now kind of any other transportation issues that you experience in the Bridgeville area or anywhere in the coastal corridors area. And again, we're going to continue on with the presentation, but feel free to provide us any comments or concerns. We'll combine those with the ones we get from the Ellendale workshop and the Milton workshop and the other workshops we're doing to make sure that they're all part of what we are reviewing and considering as we move forward with the study. We've got a few more slides that Jeff's going to go through, and then we'll go to the Q&A, assuming we get any questions. Go ahead, Jeff.
As Andrew mentioned, that is our next step, is compiling all of the comments that we receive. We have already had meetings in the Ellendale and Greenwood areas. We're, of course, talking to folks from the Bridgeville area and elsewhere tonight. And then we have workshops focused on Milton tomorrow and Georgetown on Thursday. So if you are aware of friends and family who are not able to participate in this meeting, we will present most of the same information at those workshops tomorrow and Thursday, with a little bit of spin on those individual towns, just like we did for Bridgeville tonight. So once we do all that, we're going to do a lot more of the technical analysis that you saw we've just started. So we want to better understand existing conditions from a traffic perspective and from, all elements of transportation. And we also develop traffic models to determine what we think traffic is going to look like 20 or 25 years from now. It's an inexact science, but it's a great way for us to be able to plan ahead and to be able to get out ahead of issues before it's too late. So it's very important for us to do that. Once that work is done, we'll return to you through a public venue, virtual, in person, or both, depending on what the circumstances allow later this year, to talk about transportation needs or the problems that would need to be addressed in the future. So before we go to the part of the program where we answer your questions, some information on how to find out more. I'd encourage you, if you haven't already, to visit DelDOT's project website. That's coastalcorridors.deldot.gov. You are welcome to contact DelDOT's project manager, who is the brains running the show tonight, Jen Sinelli Miller. You may be seeing her during the Q&A period as well. You can give her a call, you can email her directly, or use the project-specific email address, which goes straight to her, coastalcorridors@delaware.gov. So if you have comments that you'd like to keep entering into the Q&A, please do that. If you'd like to think a little bit more about it and send them by email, use that email address, coastalcorridors@delaware.gov. And at this point, we will open the Q&A section of tonight's program.
Thanks, Jeff. So if anyone does have any questions, this is the time to raise your hand. Again, I'm not going to go over what to do by phone because it doesn't look like we have anyone on by phone. Everyone has joined us using Zoom. If anyone has a question, just click raise your hand. Right now, I don't have anyone who has raised their hand, so we don't have any questions. And so if that's the case, which is fine, that just means Jeff did such a fantastic job with his presentation that no one has any questions. But we haven't received any yet. So we'll give it a little bit of time here, and we'll see if anyone does have any questions. Just as a reminder, we will be having another public workshop tomorrow night from 6:30, starting at 6:30 for the Milton area. And then on Thursday, we will be having the Georgetown area public workshop from 6:30 to 7:30. So we have 2 workshops remaining, and all the information that we present, the recordings of these presentations, everything will be on the Coastal Corridors website. So you can go back and review that if there's something you wanted, that you feel like you missed that you wanted to hear. So with that, I've stalled as much as I can. I still don't see any hands raised. So we are going to stay on this call until 7:30 because we did advertise that, but we don't have anything more to present. We will just wait and see if there's any questions. Jen, did you have something you wanted to add?
Hi, Andrew. So we did have a quick question. Are there timeframes set yet for intersection grade separator projects? The capital transportation program projects do have timeframes, I think, on their website. So each individual project website has that information on there. I know I checked last night for the grade separated project in Ellendale at 16 and 113, and I believe that they are looking to go to public workshop sometime this year, but they don't actually start design, I think, till 2027. So each project that is listed is available on the DelDOT website. If you go to DelDOT.gov and click on projects, you can look those projects up by their name. And if you have any questions or you can't find the project, email me, call me. I will find the information for you.
Great, thanks, Jen. And you just got to thank you in the Q&A, saying thank you for responding to that. So again, I don't see any other raised hands.
No, but we had another question come in
Yes,
from.
we did. Here, I'll just go ahead and read it, Jen.
Okay.
So the question was, are there any plans for a grade separated interchange in the Georgetown area?
So there are currently 2 programmed grade separated intersections. Those projects are 113 at 18 and I believe 113 at Route 9. They both are available on the DelDOT website. The projects, current project information should be available. I know I attended a workshop a couple years ago for them both. So there should be current information on those project websites.
Great.
And if I could add one note to those projects grew out of another planning study. So typically the way DelDOT looks comprehensively at corridors is by doing an overall planning study, and each planning study then recommends individual projects for consideration for the Capital Transportation Program. So some of you may be familiar with the US 113 North-South study, which wrapped up in 2017. It looked at 38 miles of 113 from Milford all the way to Selbyville. And 2 of the recommendations, or actually 3 of the recommendations from that project or from that study are shown here. And those are grade separations at 16, at 18 and 404, and at 9, as Jen mentioned. So, this process we would expect for coastal corridors will follow somewhat of a similar path. Once we determine what those needs are, DelDOT will identify potential ways to address those needs, all the while working with the public through an open public process. And then once improvement recommendations are made, those are considered for the capital program to actually be designed and built.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Again, the wonders of virtual technology, we are here, and we're going to stick around. I realize if this was a in-person workshop, people could have one-on-one conversations and the like, but we're obviously limited. We will answer any questions that anyone has or try to respond the best we can. We do have representatives from DelDOT, the county. We even have a representative from the Delaware Transit Corporation on to support any responses and questions that we can provide. Jed, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say that the town manager, Bethany DeBusey, is also on, and she did make a note in the Q&A that Heritage Shores is still building its last, is it this last phase? Bethany, did you want to speak to that maybe? If not, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out because we had the development map. Oh,
yep, I'm on here. Sorry, I had to get my microphone plugged in. They're not in their last phase. They're only about a third of the way through the entire project. There's planned for about 8 phases. We are only in the 4th phase, and it gets a little different in the later phases. But yeah, we're somewhere around 600 to 700 homes, and it's planned for 1,800. So that's, even though it's been going on for a long time, that's, going to be a drastic population increase over the next few years.
Yeah, I'm glad you, thank you. I'm glad you emphasized that. Our traffic models definitely assume full build out of developments that are underway, like Heritage Shores. That's unique, certainly in the study area, given its size and scope, especially as compared to the size of the town. So rest assured we'll be looking at that full build out as part of our traffic studies.
So just kind of a procedural matter, because we advertised these public meetings, this public workshop is going from 6:30 to 7:30. We are going to stay on until 7:30. Just in the maybe unlikely event that someone decides at 6:25 to come on, we want to make sure that someone is here to greet them and at least let them know what's going on. So that's why, even though we're not getting any more questions or seeing any hand raised, that we're not just ending the meeting. We will stick around until 7:30 just to complete our commitment we made. But again, we're more than happy to answer any questions that people might have related to any of the roads and areas in the area, not just 404 and 16, but any of the roads in between. I do see a few people dropping off. I do want to make sure I take the opportunity just to thank all of you for attending tonight. These are just, you all may think this is great opportunity to hear information about the study, but we feel it's great. It's a great opportunity to hear from you all and get feedback and so forth. So thank you very much for taking the time to do this on the first really nice day of the new year. I am going to go off video just so people don't have to stare at me while we wait to see if we get any questions or if anyone else comes on. So it's 7:15 right now, just coming back on to provide an update. We did start our public workshop at 6:30 and had a couple quick questions, but don't have any more. We're going to stay on video and keep the workshop open until 7:30, which is the time we had advertised that the workshop would go till, just in case anyone else comes on. We do still have 3 attendees who still remain part of the Zoom meeting. But again, until we get another question, we will just kind of be in a recess and I'll come back on at 6:20 just to update everyone and see if there's any change. Thanks, everyone. If we do get a question in the meantime, I'll come back on.
Andrew, we do have another question.
Okay. So we do have a question. Does DelDOT plan the improvement projects based on the projection and to facilitate further growth, or does it prioritize the improvement projects as problems are identified? A little bit of a chicken and egg type of question in terms of kind of what comes first here. I don't know, Mark or Jeff, would like to come on and There's Mark Cote, the Director of Planning with DelDOT. So Mark, I can read that question again if you want, or were you able to see it?
No, I opened it up. So I think it's really more the latter, that we prioritize improvement projects as issues are identified. So, projects start with ideas, whether it's through the public process or interactions, with Sussex County in this particular case, who provides a list to DelDOT for projects that they're interested in. So it's really more of a reaction to problems that are identified. I mean, we obviously look at projections, so we certainly take that into account, but it's really more as problems are identified.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Again, it's a little after 7:20. We'll stay here till 7:30 in case anyone has any more questions. We still have 2 attendees, and we just got a question from one, which was great. So hopefully that was helpful. And any other questions come in, we'll respond. Until then, we'll just sort of be on a break. I'll come back on at 7:25 to provide an update, or sooner if we get any additional questions. Hello again, everyone. It's 7:25. Just coming back on to let everyone know we have been in a short recess. We conducted our public workshop starting at 6:30, did a full presentation and had a brief question and answer because we advertised that we would that the public workshop would go from 6:30 to 7:30. We are staying on until 7:30, just in case anyone else joins us or if we get any additional questions. So again, it's 7:25. I'm going to go back on mute and go off of video. Again, I want to thank everyone who attended. I will come back on at 7:30 just to close out the workshop. Thank you. Okay, I do see a new question came in. I'll read it and we'll try to see if one of our panelists can hop on to respond. So the question is, in Sussex County, chasing and fixing problems can be daunting because the county is growing so fast. It feels like DelDOT is always in the chase after mode. Is it because the funding has to be there from the new developments before the capital projects are funded? So Mark, this might be, I see Mark Cote coming back on. Obviously there's some underlying parts of this question of the county in terms of new development, so forth. But the question really is about DelDOT. Do they have to wait until after the developments for their capital projects to be funded?
So there's a couple of different ways projects happen. So if there is a specific development who is causing a traffic issue that has been identified through a traffic impact study, then that development is responsible for taking care of that deficiency. So that's one way projects are funded. Maybe the public doesn't know it, but developers do a lot of large projects that are completely privately funded and not funded by DelDOT. Another source of funding, which is going on in the Henlopen TID, is a partnership between the private community and DelDOT. And so as that effort lifts off the ground, that'll be, again, a combination of money as developers pay TID fees and DelDOT moves forward with different projects. And then kind of the third scenario is our traditional capital project, which don't receive, private funds from developments. And that goes through the prioritization process on a biannual schedule where we go out to the public and solicit projects and input on our proposed capital transportation plan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. And Jen?
Just wanted to also point out that a new development this year has been the county's FAST Act, which is giving money towards advancing projects that are kind of already in the pipeline. So I don't know if Jamie wanted
Advancing transportation projects, right, Jen?
That's correct. I'm sorry. So yeah, and Jamie's still on the line. So if Jamie wants to just chime in real quick with a kind of a quick overview of what that does and what that program is.
Cool, thank you, Jen. Basically, FAST is a project that allows projects that are already identified for improvements to be accelerated and delivered faster using county funding, essentially, to deliver the projects now and to recoup that later. Now, there are projects that have been identified and they are aimed to be smaller projects that are not necessarily in an immediately advanceable stage and otherwise may take years to progress, but the county is able to accelerate them forward faster. And certainly we've seen couple of examples come forward already. One has been selected and was identified by council last year, and that is moving forward, not in the Bridgeville area, but certainly as we move forward with this, other projects can be identified and move forward. So watch this space, it's very exciting, and it's a good initiative. So thank you.
So Jamie, can you stay on just for 1 second, Jamie?
Sure.
Just the one last follow-up. How is that FAST program funded? Where does that funding come from?
I would need to check the exact specific source of the funds. It is actually updated in our website. So if someone has questions about that, I can identify that. If someone was to follow up with me, and I will put my contact information in the comments part of this forum. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you want to put that, or you can obviously just reach out to Jamie at the Sussex County Department of Planning, and just ask for the person with the American accent, right, Jamie? Is that right? I love his voice. So much more professional than mine. But thanks, Jamie, for that. And we're going to wrap up our workshop at this point. So thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you to Jeff for doing a great job presenting, and to Jen for running the show. And we will be back at it tomorrow night for the Milton workshop at 6:30, and on Thursday at 6:30 for the Georgetown workshop. So thanks again, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.